Good morning, everyone. Thank you.
Hello, and welcome to our service. We are the Road Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Ashland, Oregon. I'm Reverend Alison Duren-Sutherland, and though I currently serve Saltwater UU Church just south of Seattle, I was part of the roof community for over a decade because this place has been a true community of care for me and my family, and because you would not let me ignore my call to serve this faith as a minister. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so happy to welcome all of you to our service this morning, both online and in person. I was meant to be there in person myself, but I've come down with COVID. Feeling sad to miss out on your hugs and smiles and connecting with you at coffee hour after today's service. But I'm so grateful to Steve and the stream team for working extra hard to make it so I can still be with you this morning in this way, and for making this service available to folks online. I've actually invited online attendees from Saltwater, where I serve as the minister, to join us this morning. And I want to offer a special welcome to the Salties who are tuning into YouTube. Thank you so much for being here today. I also want to express gratitude for the neighborhood team who welcomed the on-site congregation and who is making sure that there will be snacks and coffee available after the service. We invite folks to sign up for our mailing list at rvuuf.org. You will receive a weekly email that gives you all the information you need to get involved with everything going on at Roof, including attending Sunday worship in person or online. We are glad you're with us for this service, and we hope you'll join in our mission to embrace diversity, empower connection, and engage in the work. We begin each service by acknowledging that the Roof building stands on land that is the original home of the Cow Creek Umpqua, Shasta, and Lagawa-Tekelma peoples. We remind ourselves that Indigenous people are part of our communities and continue to experience the harmful impacts of colonization, land theft, and cultural erasure. We are committed to fighting for the worth and dignity of Indigenous people, both in our community and around the world. These services are a part of that work. Welcome, and thank you for being with us this morning. We begin our sacred time together by lighting the flaming chalice, symbol of Unitarian Universalism. Our chalice lighting words, like all our readings this morning, are taken from the ancient Chinese wisdom text, the Tao Te Ching, or the Book of the Way. We'll use English adaptations created by philosopher Stephen Mitchell and speculative fiction writer Ursula Le Guin. We light the chalice with chapter 32 of the Tao, as adapted by Stephen Mitchell. The Tao can't be perceived. Smaller than an electron, it contains uncountable galaxies. If powerful men and women could remain centered in the Tao, all things would be in harmony. The world would be a paradise. All people would be at peace, and the law would be written in their hearts. When you have names and forms, know that they are provisional. When you have institutions, know where their function should end. Knowing when to stop, you can avoid any danger. All things end in the Tao as rivers flow to the sea.
In case you didn't hear her, I know it's quite faint, at least to me up here. Allison is down with COVID, so she sort of swallowed that, and we didn't all hear it. Please join me in singing our first hymn this morning, number 122 in your gray hymnal, Sound Over All Waters.
Oh
it might be a little choppy today because this was all sort of changed about. So anyway, the Roof Anti-Racism Study Group lights a candle each week in our service to remind us of the ongoing work of dismantling racism and white supremacy in our hearts, our communities, and our world. Today, as we engage with a text that comes from ancient China, Reverend Alison asked that we focus this morning on anti-Chinese racism and how it has shown up in our region throughout history. Between the 1850 and 1870, the Chinese population in Jackson and Josephine counties went from almost none to 2,500 people, mostly gold miners and a few merchants selling these folks familiar goods from back home. By 1880, Chinese workers were moving from mining to railroad building, and thriving Chinese communities in places like Jacksonville and Ashland were supporting restaurants, traditional healers, and other services. Under Oregon state law, it was illegal for Chinese immigrants to own businesses, but Southern Oregon ignored those laws and a vibrant Chinese community developed here. In 1882, the Chinese Exclusion Act was passed at the federal level, barring any more Chinese immigrants from entering the country and making anti-Chinese sentiment and action national policy. In 1884, 34 Chinese miners were lynched by white Oregonians, and by 1900, there were less than 50 Chinese people in Jackson County. Chinese immigrants were some of the first settlers in our region. They had thriving communities, and those communities were systematically dismantled through white supremacist laws and violence. Racism is more than black and white, and it's important that we learn this history so we can challenge myths about who built this country and this state, and so we can work for a future where the contributions and presence of all different kinds of people are welcomed and celebrated in Southern Oregon.
For more than a decade, it has been the practice of this congregation to light a candle each week to illuminate our hope for peace. Peace in our hearts, in our homes, in our communities, between nations, and all over the world. Our Peace Candle words are chapter 31 of the Tao Te Ching, which Ursula Le Guin titles Against War. Even the best weapon is an unhappy tool, hateful to living things. So the follower of the way stays away from it. Weapons are unhappy tools, not chosen by thoughtful people, to be used only when there is no choice, and with a calm, still mind, without enjoyment. To enjoy using weapons is to enjoy killing people, is to lose your share in the common good. It is right that the murder of many people be mourned and lamented. It is right that the victor in war be received with funeral ceremonies.
Dear, now I'm hoping I can see. Oh, that's better. Thank you. Thank you very much. This part I know. Peace of Shalom. Peace of Shalom. Peace of
In the foreword of his interpretation of the Tao Te Ching, Stephen Mitchell writes, quote, Tao Te Ching can be translated as the book of the immanence of the way, or the book of the way and how it manifests itself in the world, or simply the book of the way. About Lao Tzu, its author, there is practically nothing to be said. All he left us is this book, the classic manual on the art of living. People usually think of Lao Tzu as a hermit, a dropout from society. This misperception may arise from his insistence on wei wu wei, literally doing not doing, or active non-action, which has been seen as passivity, but nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing is done because the doer has wholeheartedly vanished into the deed. This nothing is in fact everything. It happens when we trust the intelligence of the universe, end quote. Now, I'd like to read a few English language versions of Lao Tzu's wisdom poems, written around 2,500 years ago in China, and interpreted in English by Stephen Mitchell and Ursula Le Guin. Mitchell's versions begin with only their chapter number, while Le Guin's each have both a number and a title that she's given to the poem. Remember that Tao means way, but also, as Mitchell says, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. Also know that the 10,000 things is a way of saying every little thing, all that is, similar to everything under heaven. I invite you now into conversation with the sacred through the words of the Tao Te Ching. Begin by noticing your breath in and out. If you'd like to, you can close your eyes or you can keep them open. If your mind wanders, just return to your breath. And to the sound of my voice as I offer these words from all the way across the world, interpreted across language and culture and thousands of years. 1. Taoing. The way you can go isn't the real way. The name you can name isn't the real name. Heaven and earth begin in the unnamed, name's the mother of the 10,000 things. So the unwanting soul sees what's hidden, and the ever-wanting soul sees only what it wants. 2 things, one origin, but different in name, mystery of all mysteries, the door to the hidden. 8, easy by nature. True goodness is like water. Water's good for everything. It doesn't compete. It goes right to the low, loathsome places, and so finds the way. For a house, the good thing is level ground. In thinking, depth is good. The good of giving is magnanimity, of speaking, honesty, of government, order. The good of work is skill, and of action, timing. No competition, so no blame. Nine, fill your bowl to the brim and it will spill. Keep sharpening your knife and it will blunt. Chase after money and security and your heart will never unclench. Care about people's approval and you will be their prisoner. Do your work, then step back. The only path to serenity. 11. We join the spokes together in a wheel, but it is the center hole that makes the wagon move. We shape clay into a pot, but it is the emptiness inside that holds whatever we want. We hammer wood for a house, but it is the inner space that makes it livable. We work with being. Non-being is what we use. "16, returning to the root. Be completely empty. Be perfectly serene. The 10,000 things arise together, and in their arising is their return. Now they flower, and flowering sink homeward, returning to the root. The return to the root is peace. Peace, to accept what must be, to know what endures. In that knowledge is wisdom. Without it, ruin, disorder. To know what endures is to be open-hearted, magnanimous, regal, blessed, following the Tao, the way that endures forever. The body comes to its end, but there is nothing to fear." All right, so I've made a little more space for myself. I've come outside because I want to invite you to join me in a practice of Tai Chi. So the Tao Te Ching is an ancient wisdom text from China. Tai Chi is an ancient system of body movement, also from China. I learned about Tai Chi, well, for the very first time in San Francisco, watching old Chinese men in Golden Gate Park early in the morning when I would visit with my mother, doing these very slow movements together. It was so calming to watch. But then when I got to seminary at Star King School for the Ministry, I was introduced to a Tai Chi practice on YouTube created by Capacitar International. And then my professor, J. Tyson Casey, would begin each of our classes with a Tai Chi practice, coordinating these movements with our breath, doing it together to help bring us into alignment. So I want to invite all of you to do this with me today. And if you're able, if it feels good, I want to encourage you to stand up, spread out a little bit, try to get your feet, shoulder width apart maybe. Just whatever feels comfortable. Spread out in the aisles if you need to. If standing doesn't feel right for you today, that's okay. There are arm movements and you can use those. And if arm movements aren't available to you, that's all right too. Think about the images that I'm going to share and the energy of those images in your mind without bringing your body to it. If your body doesn't want to do this today, that's just fine. You can sit still and contemplate the images. So the first thing I want to encourage you to do, again, is find that comfortable stance, feet about, hip width apart. Put your hands kind of right under your belly button. And notice if you can bring your breath into your hands. So as you breathe in, feel the belly expand. And then let it go as you breathe out. So the goal is to breathe into that space, your core, as we do Tai Chi together. So the first thing I want to invite you to do is just swing back and forth. Swing. I did this when I was a kid. I don't know if you ever did. Something about it felt nice. And this is the way the Capacitar International practice begins. And I like this because it reminds me, this isn't anything special or fancy. I did this stuff when I was a kid, just because it felt good. And come to stillness. And then now we're going to be a mountain. So we're going to reach to one side, reach up as we breathe in, and then bring the mountain down over your head. So you're creating a mountain with your hands that goes over your whole body. And on the other side, we breathe in. And then we bring the mountain down over our body as we breathe out. Let's do that a few more times. The mountain. I do this, I feel my feet planted in the earth. I feel like I can be rooted like a mountain. And even as I'm rooted, I can stretch tall and strong. Let's do one more on each side, the mountain. And now let's do the waterfall. So this time, we'll actually step forward with one of our feet while we reach our hands up, and then we'll step back on our back foot like we're sitting back and we're just watching the waterfall. Watching the waterfall, and then you'll switch legs, reaching up with the in-breath, sitting back on your back leg, and just watching the waterfall. Just watch it pass. Keep doing that, one on each side. Sitting back to watch the waterfall. Stretching up and sitting back to watch the waterfall. One more time on each side. And back to center. So this next movement I've heard called the yin-yang pose. I call it the circle of giving and receiving. It reminds me of that you, him. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. So you'll start with one foot forward, and you'll move your hands palms upward in a circle. You step into that foot and move your hand forward in that direction. And then bring them back and lean back into your back foot. Step forward, giving your gifts to the world. And step back, receiving all that you need to nourish your own spirit. Giving and receiving. Giving and receiving. One more time on this side, giving and receiving. And now let's step the other foot forward and we'll circle our hands in the opposite direction. Stepping forward to give and back to receive. Because what do we have to give if we don't make space for ourselves to receive? Always needs to be in balance, like the yin-yang symbol. Giving and receiving. One more time. Giving and receiving. Coming back to center. This movement is called the passing cloud. So I'll take one arm, I'll sweep it across my body as I breathe in, and I'll bring it across my eyes as I breathe out. So I breathe in, and let the passing cloud just pass through your field of vision. Notice my eyes aren't going with that passing cloud, right? They're just watching as it passes. This movement reminds us that good things come and then they end. That's part of life. And challenging things come and then they pass, just like a passing cloud. That's part of life, so we let those clouds pass. We don't get attached to them. We know they're just going to come and go, like passing clouds. So let's come back to center. Come back to stillness. Breathe deep into your belly, your core. I hope this practice has brought you a bit of centering, a bit of grounding, a bit of connection to the earth, to the water, the mountains, and the clouds. If you're interested in learning more about Tai Chi, there are so many resources. I hope that you will seek some of them out. As I said, I really appreciated everything I learned from the Capacitar International Tai Chi practice that I first encountered on YouTube. Thanks for joining me in this practice today, however you engaged with it. "25. Imagining mystery. There is something that contains everything. Before heaven and earth, it is. Oh, it is still and unbodied, all on its own, unchanging, all-pervading, ever-moving, so it can act as the mother of all things. Not knowing its real name, we only call it the way. If it must be named, let its name be great. Greatness means going on. Going on means going far. Going far means turning back. So they say, the way is great, heaven is great, earth is great, and humankind is great. 4 greatnesses in the world, and humanity is one of them. People follow earth. Earth follows heaven. Heaven follows the way. The way follows what is. The first time I shared words of the Tao with the congregation I serve, so many people said they had never heard of the Tao Te Ching before, that it was a lot to think about, but that they were intrigued. They wanted to learn more. The worship associate who I was working with on that service really wanted to make sure that before we started reading these excerpts from the Tao, we defined the way for everyone. So I've tried to provide some context, and I hope it's been enough to allow you to engage with these wise and ancient poems. But the truth is, the whole book is an attempt to name the nameless, to explain the ineffable. And that ineffable nameless, that is the way. Even if you're here from Saltwater and you experienced a version of this service previously, I know from my own experience that each time we enter into the conversation with the Tao Te Ching, new glimpses of the way will be revealed to us. I've been engaging with this text for just about a quarter of a century, and I know there's still so much more for me in these simple yet mind-blowing words. My freshman year in college, my friend Sarah gave me a copy of Stephen Mitchell's English interpretation of the Tao Te Ching. Sarah, if I remember correctly, was like me at that time, raised Christian, disillusioned, agnostic, with strong atheist leanings, but looking for meaning. She found it in words inspired by the Tao Te Ching, and so did I. There I found no gods, no sin, no misogyny that I could detect, just water flowing through valleys and over stones, just paradoxical poetry that somehow felt true, even when I didn't really understand what it was saying, even if I still don't understand exactly what it's saying. 43, water and stone. What's softest in the world rushes and runs over what's hardest in the world. The immaterial enters the impenetrable. So I know the good in not doing, the wordless teaching, the profit in not doing. Not many people understand it. It was many years after I was first introduced to the Tao in college that I learned that my very favorite author, longtime Oregonian Ursula Le Guin, who wrote groundbreaking speculative fiction, had also interpreted the Tao Te Ching in English. And in fact, Le Guin was herself a student of the Tao, and the way can be found woven throughout her novels if you know to look for it. Light is the left hand of darkness, and darkness the right hand of light. Two are one, life and death lying together like lovers, like hands joined together, like the end and the way. Now that's not from the Tao, though it sure sounds to me like it could be. It's actually from Le Guin's seminal work, The Left Hand of Darkness. But neither Mitchell nor Le Guin, whose interpretations we're relying on today, spoke Chinese. They didn't read Chinese. As is the case with so many religious texts, the words I'm sharing this morning come to us from long ago, at a time when people's lives were so different than they are now, written in a language that I do not speak, translated and reinterpreted through the years, sometimes perhaps to the point of disconnection from the original meanings. I have to say, I admire Islam and Judaism for including as part of their traditional learning the respective languages of their holy books so that they know the actual words of their faith, the way they were written. But even so, I see the truth of the way shining through the words of every translated and reinterpreted version of the Tao Te Ching that I've encountered. Mitchell and Le Guin both credit an 1898 character-by-character translation of the Chinese by Paul Crooks as foundational to their interpretations, along with their own personal spiritual work, Le Guin with Taoism and Mitchell with Zen Buddhism. I learned a saying from my own teacher of the Tao, J. Tyson Casey at Star King School for the Ministry that, quote, when the wind of Buddhism touched the bell of the Tao, the sound that followed was Zen. So some of our Zen practitioners here at ROOF may find echoes of that tradition in these interpretations of Lao Tzu that we're engaging with today. As a pagan myself with an earth-centered spirituality, the metaphors from the natural world, the rivers, the rocks, the flowers and the roots, heaven and earth, they call me powerfully onto the way. 37, overall. The way never does anything, and yet everything gets done. If those in power could hold to the way, the 10,000 things would look after themselves. If even so they tried to act, I'd quiet them with the nameless, the natural. In the unnamed, in the unshapen is not wanting. In not wanting is stillness. In stillness, all under heaven rests. Here is what Mitchell's intro I read earlier was talking about. The way never does anything, and yet everything gets done. Wei wu wei, active non-action, doing not doing. I have to admit, friends, I'm still very much a learner when it comes to wei wu wei, and it's hard to wrap my brain around. I'm catching glimpses of it here and there, though. In the nonviolent resistors of the civil rights era, who trained and trained each other to be able to sit calmly at a lunch counter while epithets and food were hurled at them. That's some active non-action. My professor, Tyson Casey, used the metaphor of pruning, cutting back part of a living plant for the purpose of directing the plant's energy into more productive growth. I think about the plum trees in my yard here in White City that will crack their own branches over heavy with fruit unless I thin every other tiny green plum in the spring. In pruning, in thinning, we're actively ensuring that the plant's life force doesn't move in certain ways. The gardener takes action so that the plant will not act in ways that could cause it harm. Active, non-action. Having been raised in an economic system that says not only that all growth is good, but that growth must always continue onward, it's hard for me to accept the wisdom of thinning and pruning. I don't want to cut back the living plant. I don't want to toss away half the plums my tree makes. I want to let all the growth burst forth. I have to remind myself that thinning and pruning aren't a rejection of the life force of the plant, just a helpful redirection. One other place I think I've encountered this way-woo way, active non-action, doing, not doing, is in the ministry of Tricia Hersey, the Nat Bishop, author of the book Rest is Resistance. This Black woman is rejecting grind culture and reclaiming rest as the birthright of all human beings. She writes, quote, "We are born knowing how to rest and listen to what our bodies need. It's second nature and an inner knowing. Infants and children follow their body cues, and without doing so would not survive. This inner knowing is slowly stolen from us as we replace it with disconnection. We are barely surviving from our sleep deprivation, worker exploitation, and exhaustion. We must rest," end quote. Her idea of that inner knowing that infants and children possess, but we grown-ups have lost touch with, that echoes some of Lao Tzu's descriptions of the Tao. Noticing and responding to our body's need for rest is powerfully countercultural, a form of doing, not doing that is harder than it sounds. But I'm also finding that when I don't choose to rest when I need it, my body chooses for me, and I get sick. Even as I sit and rest in bed, inside my body, my immune system is working overtime to evict the viral invaders. It may look like I'm not doing anything at all, but inside, my body is working hard to heal. Active, non-action. 48. In the pursuit of knowledge, every day something is added. In the practice of the Tao, every day something is dropped. Less and less do you need to force things until you finally arrive at non-action. When nothing is done, nothing is left undone. True mastery can be gained by letting things go their own way. It can't be gained by interfering. That's a tough one. I've always thought I had to take active action to make things happen, analyze the options, sometimes even agonizing over the options, crunch the numbers, make the most rational, reasonable, logical choice, and then act to bring it into being. Feel my heart clenching around that desire for security, for certainty, for everything to come out the way that I'd planned. I've learned to take action to affect outcomes. And yet, we all know that if we want to experience the joy of a blooming flower, pulling the bud open with our fingers is not the way to make it happen, right? Absolutely not. So is it possible that this is true in other areas of life? This, my friends, is one of the key lessons that the Tao Te Ching offers us, I believe. And it challenges so much of what we think we know about how to be in the world, or at least it does for me. But more and more, I find that when my task feels like a struggle, it's time to stop. Then, from that place of stillness, something else emerges, often something better than what I was struggling to make happen in the first place. In those moments, when I release the struggle and just make space for the right thing to happen, and then it does, that's when I feel myself flowing along the way. Lao Tzu whispers to me from 2,500 years ago, do your work, then step back. The only path to serenity. 22. If you want to become whole, let yourself be partial. If you want to become straight, let yourself be crooked. If you want to become full, let yourself be empty. If you want to be reborn, let yourself die. If you want to be given everything, give everything up. The Master, by residing in the Tao, sets an example for all beings. Because he doesn't display himself, people can see his light. Because she has nothing to prove, people can trust her words. Because he doesn't know who he is, people recognize themselves in him. Because she has no goal in mind, everything she does succeeds. When the ancient masters said, if you want to be given everything, give up everything, they weren't using empty phrases. Only in being lived by the Tao can you truly be yourself. Amen. Ashe. And blessed be.
We'll tell her that. Each week we take an offering to support the mission and work of our congregation. Your gifts are by far the most important source of support for the services, mission, and work of this congregation. Your generosity is what keeps us going and helps us continue to make a difference in people's lives and in the world around us. If you are joining us online, you will soon see directions for giving on the screen. If you are here in the Great Hall, you can put your gift in the offering basket or scan the QR code on the back of your order of service to give electronically. If you need support, please use the contact form at rvuf.org to get in touch with us, and we will do our best to help. We will now give and receive our morning offering. For these gifts and all the gifts that you bring to our community and into this world, thank you. Please join me in our next hymn, number 1007. There's a river flowing in my soul. This is a little bit weird, to be honest, in the way that it's written out. You'll see on the second page it says 1 and 2. That means you go back to the little dots here and sing that twice. And then after the second twice it says 3. And you go to 3, and then we just keep singing that until I say, okay, last time. That's that. Here we go. Please rise in body or spirit. I'm going to give us a couple bars. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. Now you go back to the beginning. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing. This time it's mine. There you go. There's a river flowing in my mind, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind. Third ending. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing. There's a river, last time, flowing in my mind. Soul. Yeah, there too. Yeah.
We'll close today, right where we began, with chapter 32 of the Tao Te Ching, this time from Le Guin's interpretation, which she titles Sacred Power. The way goes on forever, nameless, uncut wood, nothing important. Yet nobody under heaven dare try to carve it. If rulers and leaders could use it, the 10,000 things would gather in homage. Heaven and earth would drop sweet dew, and people, without being ordered, would be fair to one another. To order, to govern, is to begin naming. When names proliferate, it's time to stop. If you know when to stop, you're in no danger. The way in the world is as a stream to a valley, a river